Now that our crumb coat has chilled and all those crumbs are trapped into that inner layer of frosting, now we can frost the cake. I like to start with a pretty large dollop of frosting straight on the top of the cake. From there, use our offset spatula to start to smooth out the frosting on the top, pushing it to the edges, and using our rotating turntable to spin the cake. Once it starts to smooth out, you want to keep your spatula as flat as possible and keep it still, and then spin the cake and the icing will begin to flatten out on its own. Always clean off your spatula in between so we're not dragging the frosting around the cake. So now that we smoothed out the top of the cake, the icing is pushed over a little bit to create this lip around the side of the cake. So we're going to use our spatula to smush that down and attach it to the side of the cake. So from here, I'll start applying frosting to the sides of the cake. Again, only working with a little bit of frosting at a time to make sure everything is nice and clean. It's just easier to work with only a little bit at a time. So I'm just making my way around the sides of the cake. It doesn't have to be perfectly smooth at this point. We're just looking for a nice even layer of buttercream, and we'll smooth it out later. So from here, there's an even amount of buttercream on the sides of the cake. It's not perfectly smooth or anything at this point, but none of the cake is showing through, so we can go back and smooth it out now. So I'm going to use my icing smoother, and what I want to do is hold it so it's slightly touching the sides of the cake. The bottom is touching the cake board, and we're going to spin the cake while keeping the icing smoother still to scrape off any excess buttercream. From there, you want to scrape off your smoother before we go around again. As you can see, I'm not moving the smoother at all. I'm trying to keep it as still as possible and only rotating the cake, and it kind of picks up the frosting where there's excess and fills in any holes where you might need to add more. So looking at the sides, it's starting to smooth out really nicely. There's a few spots where I might need more buttercream or a little bit more coverage on the cake. So I'm going to use my offset spatula again to go back and fill in those spots. And then we're going to go around again with our icing smoother. Everything's looking really smooth for now. I'm going to clean up this bottom edge by just slightly placing the edge of the smoother on the bottom here on the cake board and giving it a spin while gently pressing down to pick up some of that extra frosting that fell out. So I'd say that the sides of the cake are nearly perfect and smooth. I'm going to work on the top of the cake next, and then we'll go back and do the sides one last time before we're done. So cleaning off your spatula. So as we worked on the sides of the cake, it pushed the icing up a little bit, and now we have this lip around the top edge, so we want to clean that off. And we're going to do so by using the side of our offset spatula, and I'm going to gently place it on the top and pull that extra frosting towards the center. And you want to clean off the spatula between each time. So going around again, that extra lip of frosting, I'm going to place the edge right at the top and gently pull it towards the center. So working our way around the cake, gently pulling that extra frosting in. And go back to the icing smoother. I'm going to do the outside or the sides of the cake one last time. and then clean up any extra little peaks of frosting that might have come up the sides. And then for a really smooth top, I'll take my icing smoother and gently place it on the very top of the cake and give it a spin. So I'm going to switch to my small offset spatula to fill in some of the smaller holes and clean up the top edges again. And if you found that your buttercream wasn't spreading on the cake and it was too cold, that means the butter has probably firmed up a little bit. You can try just remixing it again until it smooths out. If the buttercream is just really cold, you could microwave a small portion of it, maybe like a 1/4 to 1/2 cup, and to warm that up, and then add it back to your bowl and mix again, and that little bit of heated up buttercream will bring it back to the correct temperature. If you find that the buttercream is soupy or melty and kind of slipping and sliding around your cake, it's probably just too warm and too soft. So you can just put that back in the refrigerator for a little bit, maybe try 10 minutes, and then bring it back out and mix it up again until smooth. I really like the small offset spatula because I have a lot of control over it, so I can really smooth out some of those finer details. So once you think your cake is done, take a step back, give it a spin, check it out. If you need to add frosting anywhere, go ahead. If you want to smooth it out a few more times, you can keep going until you're happy with how it's turned out. It's important to know how to stack, fill, and frost the cake because this is going to be the base for any of the future designs that we're going to learn, so you can always return back to this lesson.